Let's talk about study habits. The first thing that you do when you study is you want to learn the grammar of the software. Now, if you think about it, grammar are the underlying rules or the things that are always true. So in English, I can make up an unlimited amount of sentences that I've never said before because I know the rules of the language. The same is actually true of computers. They have a grammar, we just never talk about it. So let's take a look at the grammar in English, and then we can see how that relates to the grammar in Windows or other software. So in English, I start with a subject, for example, I, and then I have a verb, like ran, and then we follow it with an object, like to the store. I ran to the store. Subject, verb, object. Windows, linguistically, is exactly the opposite. We always start with the object, like a file, open. We have our verb, or this icon, the object, open, the verb, or pin to start menu. So Windows isn't linguistically ergonomic. People who come to Windows later in life struggle because they want to send an email, not an email send, or bold a word, not a word bold. But if you explain the grammar to them and you say, hey, Windows is an object-verb language, you teach them to look for the object, they become much better at it. You'll see a dramatic improvement in their performance because now they know the grammar. So when they don't know what to do, they'll go out and look for the object, and then they'll right click and they'll look for the verbs. And then they'll be independent as opposed to showing them how to send a particular email. There is an underlying structure. Command line is a lot more linguistically ergonomic. So if we look at the command line, it's always verb, object. So make a directory named shad. If I add in switches, and switches are always prefaced by a /, it's verb, object, and the switch becomes an adverb. So this command, for example, would give me a directory listing of a folder named shad and all of its subfolders. So the S says also give me the subfolders. It modifies the action of the verb. With PowerShell, it's a little bit different. So in PowerShell, we start with a verb like get, we add a dash and some kind of a noun. So get AD user, and then finally we have our object, username sales1. So if you know your verbs, like get retrieves information about an existing object, it's pretty easy to look at the nouns and see what they do. And here's a trick for PowerShell. If you type your verbs and you type a dash and you hit the tab, it'll show you all the nouns that would go with that verb. And this really becomes your job just to provide the objects, and you're in business. Graphical user tools also have a grammar to them as well. So for example, Active Directory users and computers, a better name for it really would be Active Directory objects, because it's any object at the domain level. Users, computers, groups, anything at a domain level. So if I want to raise the functional level of the domain, that would be done in Active Directory users and computers because it's anything in the domain. Whereas if I go into Active Directory sites and services, those are anything to do with sites or geographic locations. So for example, subnets, IP subnets, are how we identify the geographical location. So we do that in sites and services. We put those subnets in. Or inter-site transport is how information is replicated between sites. We have the lists of our sites and the domain controllers at every site. So if I had to turn on universal group membership caching, and I know it's done at a site level, even if I've never done that, I would know it would be done in sites and services. Whereas Active Directory domains and trusts are for everything done at a forest level. So it might be trust between domains within the forest, trust between two separate forests. So somebody came to you and said, how would you add a UPN suffix to the forest? Well, the key to that question would be to the forest. Even if you've never done that or you have no idea what a UPN suffix is, if you know that everything at the forest is done in Active Directory domains and trusts, you'll be able to answer that question. So as you're studying, look for patterns. Focus on the grammar and study efficiently. Find out the things that are always true, and then you'll easily be able to pick out answers that go against that grammar so that you can come to the right answer even for something that you've never seen or experienced before.